This is the Everyday AI Show, the everyday podcast where we simplify AI and bring its power to your fingertips. Listen daily for practical advice to boost your career, business, and everyday life.
This podcast is sponsored by Google. Hey folks, I'm Amar, product and design lead at Google DeepMind. We just launched a revamped vibe coding experience in AI Studio that lets you mix and match AI capabilities to turn your ideas into reality faster than ever. Just describe your app and Gemini will automatically wire up the right models and APIs for you. And if you need a spark, hit I'm feeling lucky and we'll help you get started. Head to ai.studio/build to create your first app.
The promise of agentic browsers are undeniable. Like, this thing can go do my work while I just go make myself a coffee or take a break. Yeah, it's amazing. But there's a sometimes hidden downside, right? Because I think we can all probably agree, especially if you're listening to the show, that there's an element of AI browsers being a cheat code, but are they too risky? I mean, as an example, I had both ChatGPT's Atlas and Perplexity's Comet browser up last night running the exact same task, right? Going through my podcast and helping me plan and edit. Cheat code, right? But what if one of those browsers accidentally starts deleting my shows, or I don't know, starts publishing the information that maybe I don't want published? So that's a topic we're going to be tackling today and just answering the question if AI agents are more cheat code or more risk. So I'm excited for today's conversation. I hope you are too. Welcome to Everyday AI. If you're new here, we do this thing every day. It's your daily, unedited, unscripted, live stream podcast, helping everyday business leaders like you and me make sense of all these AI developments, new features, new tools, new browsers, how we can make sense of it to grow our companies and our careers. If that's what you're trying to do, awesome. It starts here. But to take it to the next level, go to our website, youreverydayai.com. Sign up for the free daily newsletter. We're going to be recapping the highlights from today's conversation, as well as giving you all the other AI news you need to stay ahead. All right, let's bring in an expert. You don't have to listen to me yap about agentic browsers. You've heard me do that enough. So live stream audience, please help me welcome to the show. We have Max Vermeer, the Senior Director of AI Strategy at Abby. Max, thank you so much for joining the Everyday AI Show.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me on. This is a pleasure.
All right. For those that aren't familiar, tell us a little bit about what Abby is, what it is you guys do.
Well, we really turn complexity into clarity using purpose-built AI. So we are a technology vendor specifically focused on solving problems around documents, which is one of the things. Actually, quite funny enough, I was researching it yesterday that we've been using documents as humans for over 5,000 years. And interestingly, we've never used more of them. So even though we had all of our switches over to digital, there's never been more documents. There's never been more unstructured data. And it's becoming the dark matter of businesses. So that's what we're trying to solve as an organization.
And, I'm curious because I'm sure you all are fielding these kind of questions all the time. Is there a big appetite with the companies that you're working with right now? Are people asking, right? Like, hey, should we be using agentic browsers? What's kind of the overall sentiment right now in the enterprise in terms of have a lot already adapted them? Is it still a question mark? Are people staying away? What's it like?
I think it's definitely still a big question mark, simply because enterprises, they're big ships. They don't kind of twist and turn as easily as we people personally can say, well, I'm going to have a play with this new agentic browser from OpenAI or the one from Perplexity. So they're still digesting, in all honesty, what the investments that they made a couple of years ago in GenAI. They're still trying to figure out, what do we do with Agentic now that it's here? And everybody's talking about the promise. And now there's actually this thing called agentic browsers, which allows me to use the interfaces I already have if they're web-based. Because let's be honest, there's still a lot of applications in the enterprise world that are a desktop application that have zero web interface. And they're trying to make sense of it. The interesting thing is, in the enterprise space, there's always been something called robotic process automation, which basically allows you to manipulate interfaces. So agentic browsers basically do the same thing, just at a different level, in honesty. So it's a bit of a flashback and also a new technology at the same time. But the interesting bit is all of these, let's be honest, it's all hype cycles that are happening, are getting so short. it's really difficult for enterprises, customers of ours to navigate all of that. And that's where they're also looking to us as Abby and also to me, for example, to help them, hey, how do I make sense of all of this and what do I actually need? Because the multitude of technologies that's out there is getting infinite, basically. So that's an interesting time to be in.
Mm. So let's skip to the end and then we'll work our way back. But to answer the question, are agentic browsers more business cheat code or more unknown risk? What's the answer to that question, at least right now?
So I think in a lot of sectors, they're absolutely unknown risk at the moment. Again, it comes down to from which lens you're looking at it. Whether it's as the business, then it's absolutely going to be unknown risk or actually known risk, but no idea how to solve for that problem at the moment. From a personal perspective, personal productivity, well, it's pretty cool what you can do with it and how it can help you do the work that you're supposed to be doing in a faster way. But it's exactly the same story again. When ChatGPT, a lot of the other LLM based tools came out, where everybody starts seeing, okay, well, I can actually help this increase my personal productivity. Whether that's allowed or not is to be debated because that's the whole compliance area around it that had to be figured out by the organizations. But then we get back to steering the ship and making it alter course is not as easy.
Mm. And maybe let's before we get super dorky, because I hope we can here in a minute, but let's bring everyone else up to speed here, right? And if you're a longtime listener of the show, like I said, you've already heard me yap for 10 plus hours about agentic browsers. But maybe Max, can you explain to our audience that just maybe hasn't used it, or they're like, wait, what the heck is an agentic browser? Like, what is an agentic browser? How does it work? And what's the big differences maybe versus using ChatGPT versus even maybe using like an agent in a browser versus an agentic browser?
Yeah, absolutely. So the beauty of it is that it actually has access to your browser, which means it has access to everything that you would typically do. It's not working in a silo. So we had, for example, the agent that you already had in ChatGPT before, which had its own browser, but it didn't have any really context of who you are, how you use the internet, which sites that you actually use, or what your login is, what your actual favorites are, and your history of what you've purchased on Amazon, and the things that it could know about you because it's in your browser. So that's the big difference. And so one of the use cases that actually I love about it is that if there is repetitive things, I'll give you an example. We have a wonderful procurement system where you have to go through multiple steps to get your expense reports done. I love the Exemptive browsers because now I can just say, well, here's this little Google folder where it has all of my receipts. Use our technology because it can also make some fancy calls to our services to extract all the data and then use that to fill it in into this form so I don't have to do it. So I can just sit back, relax, go make a coffee. And by the time I get back, my expenses are done. Instead of having to do this myself, lose or waste time on it, or actually have somebody else, an admin, do that. It's a huge time saver. Question is there any guidance? Is there any compliance? Is there any things that I actually should or should not be doing? This is the part that, because it's so new, for a lot of organizations, it's still going to be quite a big question mark about how they will let people leverage it or what they can actually do to stop it. Because this is, let's be honest, this is also the reason why OpenAI created it. They were having a lot of pushback on actually accessing websites that did not want to be accessed by their services because they felt like, well, they could take things that we don't want them to take. So they gave people a browser. So now they're literally just another browser that people can leverage on their own and get access to. So it's an interesting predicament where a lot of people will be finding themselves in. But that's basically, in essence, what allows you to do. It takes over what you actually would do in essence yourself.
Mm. And yeah, we're definitely going to dive in the latter half of today's conversation on the risk compliance side, right? And ethics. But first, maybe let's talk a little bit more about some of the use cases. And I think, Max, you already brought up one of the biggest benefits, right? So even ChatGPT Atlas, as an example, right? It not only has awareness of what you're doing in the actual browser, but it connects to your ChatGPT account as well. So it can bring over all of that context. But you already shared one of your example use cases. I'm wondering if maybe you can share some more, and maybe whether it's, internally there at Abby or, working with, external third parties. What are some of those more maybe repetitive tasks that are great use cases for agentic browsers?
So I think everything in terms of data transfer, right? So a lot of times there are still systems that are not interconnected. They don't have APIs, or there's no bandwidth within the IT departments or the COEs to actually set up those connections in between those different systems. Then using an agentic browser to simply have two tabs open and go like, well, this is your task. Take all the data from system A, put it into system B, which oftentimes in a lot of organizations is still the actual existing process. Somebody takes data from one system to another to actually make the process happen. I think that's a great use case for it, which is very similar again to robotic process automation, which was one of the main use cases we had there. But more on the personal productivity cheat code side, I think also what I've been using it for is when I need to book travel. We have a travel system that allows me to kind of figure out where I need to go. Well, I just, instead of trying to figure out which flights I want, I have a standard prompt that I tell it, well, this is how I want to use it. This is my favorite airline. This is kind of the price range you have to keep in mind. And if there's flags bubbling up from our travel policy, well, try to figure out a way around it so I don't have to do the searching. It's these repetitive things that oftentimes you go through, whether that's buying the same shopping list every single week, or it's doing the same kind of manipulation of information or knowledge work, trying to find something. The benefit of it is you can give it a task and it can keep going until it actually finds what it's trying to do without you actually having to spend that time, and actually can do something that is higher value, which is lovely to see.
Yeah. And this is one thing that I've been thinking about and talking about a lot on the show. Is it seems like agents, we heard back in 2024 is the year of the agents, 2025 is the year of the agents, and it seems like it keeps pushing back. I've personally been way more bullish on agentic browsers in terms of companies being able to actually start using agentic capabilities. I'm wondering, is this the case, or what are you seeing in terms of Gen AI implementation?
So it's interesting because we've been doing surveys of a lot of industry experts and also just the decision makers on this technology over the last couple of years. 2024, we did a study that talked about, hey, how are you investing into Gen AI and why are you investing into Gen AI? That actually showed that the majority of people that responded to the survey simply said, we've got fear of missing out or fear of looming obsolescence. We feel we're going to be out of the market if we don't jump onto this, because that was the general feeling that everybody had. If I could have a couple of dollars for every single time, this technology is now dead because we have large language models, I would be sitting on a large heap of cash. That is just a fact. Everything suddenly went through this hype cycle of, oh, well, this is no longer necessary because we can use this for it. It was very much seen as a silver bullet. And interestingly, we followed up that survey because it was about 60% of decision makers that actually said, well, we are just investing because of FOMO. We followed it up this year asking them, of that investment, what did you actually get from an ROI? What did you see? Are you happy with it? Are you not happy with it? And how did it work out? Interestingly enough, there's a couple of differences between the different global regions. So there's continued more investment currently in Europe, which is actually a bit of a surprise to me compared to the US. But we also saw that even though people said we're quite happy with the usage and the investment that we made, it was much more complex than we ever could have thought. And that was a general consensus across the globe, that the complexity of the technology to bring it into the enterprise workflow was vastly underestimated. And I think to that, I actually agree with what you were saying about agentic browsers being more bullish on that particular technology, simply because it already has an interface. It already has an access point to all the different systems to make things happen. So that's a huge difference. Whereas GenAI in itself had to be integrated because it is just a technology, where agentic AI is, of course, also something that is much more geared towards having its own workflow orchestration and tie into a lot of different tools and activities, access to data, which is not easily accessed, well, actually not easily made available. Where again, the browser, it's already there. If you can access it, the agentic browser can access it, which makes a huge difference.
All right. It's undeniable. It does make a huge difference, right? Having an agentic browser be able to access whatever you're logged into in the context of your conversation. But with that, obviously, comes potential huge downsides, which we're going to get to in just about 30 seconds after a quick word from our sponsors.
This podcast is sponsored by Google. Hey folks, I'm Amar, product and design lead at Google DeepMind. We just launched a revamped vibe coding experience in AI Studio that lets you mix and match AI capabilities to turn your ideas into reality faster than ever. Just describe your app and Gemini will automatically wire up the right models and APIs for you. And if you need a spark, hit I'm feeling lucky and we'll help you get started. Head to ai.studio/build to create your first app. This podcast is sponsored by Google. Hey folks, I'm Amar, product and design lead at Google DeepMind. We just launched a revamped vibe coding experience in AI Studio that lets you mix and match AI capabilities to turn your ideas into reality faster than ever. Just describe your app and Gemini will automatically wire up the right models and APIs for you. And if you need a spark, hit I'm feeling lucky and we'll help you get started. Head to ai.studio/build to create your first app.
All right. Like Brandon, I wasn't even thinking about this, but like with Google AI Studio, actually talk about cheat code. Like if you want one of my little personal secrets, record yourself doing a video of a task you want to automate in an agentic browser, upload that video into Google's AI Studio, which has video understanding, and it can literally just write an SOP for you. Sorry, that just popped into my head randomly.
Yeah.
But Max, let's get into the other side, right? Because yes, agentic browsers, when they have access to your data and you can log into, these different portals and different software systems that you use on a day-to-day basis, it maybe solves the integration problem, but what new problems arise once you do start allowing an agentic browser to access maybe a little too much?
Well, the fun part is that actually the agentic browser in itself is a cheat code to get access to systems that before you could not get access to. As an agent, there's a certain signature when you try to reach out to these things. If you try to browse, I mean, anybody that's tried to get some sort of data from ChatGPT, for example, will have found out that sometimes it just says, well, I'm not allowed to access this site anymore. They're blocking me from accessing it. So agentic browser changes that game again. And if you then put that into a business context, is something autonomously supposed to go into these systems and take actions? Is there a certain chain of authority, chain of custody that actually says a human should take these actions because they might have effect on a downstream decision that's going to happen? And then you get into the nitty-gritty detail of what this could actually mean. So I'll give you a great example. I have a friend of mine that actually wanted to be removed from ChatGPT simply because it had incorrect information and hallucinations that actually said he's dead. Now, that might sound funny that it's making those mistakes. It's not really. But if you think into the context of, let's say that this model is being used when it is making decisions. Well, if it's going through, for example, the approval process of a loan or customer onboarding, KYC, you name it, and it sees this name pop up, it's going to be, well, this can't be right. This is fraud. I should probably just say and deny. That has impact on people. And then you get into the point where okay, this actually starts to coincide with a lot of regulations, ethics, compliance, where a lot of organizations are just not ready. There's also the more, less impactful things of the personal productivity side, where you could say, well, I have to complete this quite boring survey for work. Why don't I just have my agentic browser do it for me and nobody will know? Because I can give it some input and it will kind of answer like me, like it should. And it saves me a ton of boring work. Again, is that then representative of what I'm actually supposed to do or say or provide feedback on? Not really, because I got a little bit of input, but it's not me. So the box of Pandora starts to open more and more as soon as you dig into what are the downstream effects of having it do work instead of you doing the work, and where are the lines being drawn? Because right now, there is no legal framework, there's no compliance framework that is happening in these browsers. Now, like if you start doing something that it goes, well, you probably shouldn't do this because then you will not comply with NIST, with the AI Act in Europe or the one in the US. And so that list continues on. Also, even if we just think back to, for example, GDPR, and the list of acronyms I know is long, so I'll slip after this one, Jordan, is just a thing that, if you are processing data, let's say customer data, and you're using Agentic browser, it actually sees a lot of sensitive information, PII. Is that allowed? Is that not allowed? How does that work? Where does it go? Does it stay within that environment? Actually, no longer, even though you are just using it locally, maybe even from within your corporate network. It opens up just a myriad of conversations that will need to happen before this can be adopted in any shape or way. But the same thing happened as well with GenAI, especially now with Agentic AI. As soon as we get closer and closer to actually making decisions and taking actions, there's more ethics and compliance that come into place, which I think is a good thing because it can have a lot of negative effects on people, on basically their livelihoods, in all honesty, if it gets it wrong. But when it does get it wrong, how are you going to know? Because you're not really watching when you were asking it to do those things for you. Now, were you?
Yeah, and one thing I think about a lot is, okay, right now, if you want to take advantage of the best, agentic browsers, you as a human make that choice, right? You have to go say, okay, I'm going to go download ChatGPT's Atlas or OpenAI's Atlas, or I'm going to go download and use, Perplexity's Comet. However, about 3 weeks ago, Microsoft rolled out their Copilot mode more broadly, right, which opens it up to a lot of people on the enterprise using Microsoft Edge. Inside Google Chrome, they've been updating agentic capabilities, and I'm sure at some point their Mariner agent is going to be rolled out generally. So what happens then, in 2026 and beyond, when you aren't making that intentional decision of, oh, I'm going to use an agentic browser versus when your default browser, the one that your company is telling you to use, might all of a sudden have agentic capabilities. What does that look like? And maybe what new layers of complexity might that introduce?
Well, I think it all starts with simply enabling people to actually understand the effects that it might have of using these tools, especially as they become more and more accustomed to it. I think if we look at the fact that it's now so easy to create fraudulent documents, for example, using image generators. Everybody loves all of the videos that are coming from Nano Banana, and the images that are now possible with VO. But okay, you can also create documents that actually say that you have a higher salary than you really do. It's just as easy. So if you think about that in context of these browsers and the capabilities that they will have, again, in terms of what they can do for you, how they can commit to the work that you're doing, and even perhaps at that point in time, in a year's time, take so many actions and pull in all of their other capabilities from these large language models and everything around Gen AI, it really starts to become something that, like, well, we should probably hold back on allowing this in any level of the enterprise where there is an impact on any possibility whatsoever, upstream, downstream, on somebody or a customer. Because until there is that true enablement of your organization about how to leverage this properly, how to understand all of the compliance and regulations around it, I think it's a very risky thing. In all honesty, the problem that I see right now leading up to it is because it is getting kind of, like you said, smoothly put into all of the existing browsers that everybody's already using today. It's not going to be a conscious decision anymore to go download a separate thing. It's just going to pop up. And I think it's going to be really hard for organizations to update their applications to detect that it's actually an agentic browser that's using it. So they can block, they can hide, and etc. Of course, you have all of the IT possibilities to make sure that those things don't get installed or they're turned off. But not every single organization has those things in place where there are policies that say you cannot use the capability from Google, you cannot use the capability from Copilot. It's going to be yet another level of policy and also just work that's going to have to happen to make sure that these capabilities are used in a safe way. But I hate to say it, the problem always comes back to it's us using it So it's usually the humans that make the mistakes or ask the wrong things or don't understand how the technology works. It's never really the technology's fault in itself, but it's us.
Yeah, and it always boils down to the human element, right? And one human I don't want to be in 2026 is someone in IT, right? Because it's becoming more and more complex to protect and even understand how your company's data is being used as these capabilities get rolled out, not just inside the large language models we use, right? Like they're all bringing in these connectors now that can connect to enterprise data, but then, like I said, in the browser as well. So for those people, whether they're in IT, C suites that are, taking care of data decisions, how should they be looking at setting future policies, right? When it is so hard, even I do this every day. This is all I do. And it's hard for me to keep up. So
I
how
agree.
are those technical decision makers supposed to make the right decisions, yet still innovate?
It's going to be really hard for them. The only advice that I can really give is two things. One is based on data. So again, in our survey that I talked about earlier, we actually saw that organizations that are not continuously investing in Gen AI technologies have more shadow IT popping up or shadow AI popping up. So that's interesting. So basically, it says if you're not giving your basically your internal customers what they're asking for, then they're just going to bring it on their own. And then you have zero control. Then you have no idea that it's happening. You have no idea what's going on. So it is actually better to invest and allow them to use these tools and give them the tool in itself, but under your domain, under your control, and being able to make sure that there is some level of, okay, I have a handle on it. I might not exactly like everything about it so far, but at least I know that it's happening and I can make policy based on how they're using it. So that would be my database recommendation. Now, if we go back to a little bit more the bigger picture, I do have to say that if there is the best advice that I can probably give when it's about which decisions to make, which policies to make, also just to rethink how a business works, is exactly the last sentence. Rethink how your business works. Don't try to plug in this new technology into an existing workflow, into an existing process. It might make it a little bit faster if you're lucky. It will solve a problem at one particular point, but it will create another one down the line. You have to really rethink exactly how your business operates and then choose the right technology for it.
Mm.
I will also say that oftentimes it's not going to be Gen AI. It's not going to be an agentic browser. It could be a simple, good old regular expression that is going to solve your particular problem in a certain step of your process. So because this is also the thing that I've been seeing, I don't know if you've been seeing the same thing, Jordan, watching all of this go down over the last couple of years, is that people have kind of like tunnel vision on the latest new thing, and everything else that was good and actually solved problems before suddenly isn't good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, shiny AI syndrome is probably one of the biggest obstacles holding any enterprise back, right? But we've covered a ton in today's episode, Max. So like as we wrap up, I'm not going to make you look in your crystal ball, but here we are, toward the end of 2025, heading into 2026. I want to talk about the high side. What is the high side of, agentic browsers in terms of being a cheat code, right? What might we see in 2026? And then what's the high side of risk? So, maybe you can kind of forewarn our audience, what's the extreme in both cases that you might want to be looking at for next year?
Well, on the extreme side of the reward, I would say the cheat code. I think as these technologies continue to evolve, they'll be better and better at navigating really complex workflows, really complex websites, basically, which will allow you to basically be able to say, well, I am now going to fully automate this. I'm going to simply say, provide you with the data. I have prompt management, and you can have repetitive tasks just happen. And I actually see this happening, that you'll have the capabilities, like you can run your particular research or you can run your particular task on demand, on schedule, like for example, within the existing LLMs. You're going to be able to do it with your browser. You can say, well, every single week, I want you to go get my shopping list done. Every single week, I want you to go do my reports. Every single week, I get a question from this particular person, or even become even more ad hoc. Watch my email if I get this particular kind of request, then go do this. It will get to that level. And because of the ease of the fact that you can just describe what the workflow is, that is going to be the absolute cheat code. Anything that you can describe that is repetitive, you're going to basically be able to pull out of your day-to-day job. On the risk side, and I think you started off with it, what if it suddenly makes a decision or a wrong kind of estimation? Because this is, in the end, probabilistic technology. You can ask you the same question twice, you will never get the same exact answer. And we can do everything that we want, but even the builders of this technology have admitted the way that we train it right now, it is built to always give an answer, no matter whether it's right or wrong. So that is something that you have to factor in. And that's really the crux of it all when it comes to the risk. There is very limited amount of, I would say, guardrails that are by default there, because of the technology itself. It's almost impossible to kind of keep it in a straight lane. It will always kind of find its way, and you can have a nice ending point where it has to end up. But how it will get there, you're going to find out each and every time.
All right. Such a great conversation and timely insights as well. So, Max, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join Everyday AI. We appreciate your time and your insights. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Jordan.
All right. And if you miss anything, y'all, don't worry. We're going to be recapping it all in today's newsletter. We're also going to share the study that Max was referencing there as well, in case you want to know more. So thank you for tuning in. Make sure you go sign up for the newsletter, youreverydayai.com. Thanks for listening today. Hope to see you back for more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.
This podcast is sponsored by Google. Hey folks, I'm Amar, product and design lead at Google DeepMind. We just launched a revamped vibe coding experience in AI Studio that lets you mix and match AI capabilities to turn your ideas into reality faster than ever. Just describe your app and Gemini will automatically wire up the right models and APIs for you. And if you need a spark, hit I'm feeling lucky and we'll help you get started. Head to ai.studio/build to create your first app.
And that's a wrap for today's edition of Everyday AI. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps keep us going. For a little more AI magic, visit youreverydayai.com and sign up to our daily newsletter so you don't get left behind. Go break some barriers, and we'll see you next time.